The Raptors starters are playing crazy amounts of minutes, and it's already taken a toll on guys like Fred VanVleet, who missed the last Hawks game due to back tightness, and maybe that's why he got totally exposed against Maxey, who dropped 44 points on the guy against the 76ers. It really had me reminiscing about the Sixers playoff series last year when Fred was injured, because I see him as someone who can match up with Maxey, but it just wasn't there. So in this video, I'm going to dive into what's up with this Raptors depth. Why are the starters still playing so many dang minutes? It's crazy. Last season, the Raptors had some of the highest starters playing in the league. You've got Pascal Siakam, #1 most minutes played, and just followed up there by Fred VanVleet. And if you actually look at the numbers for which starting unit played the most, which bench played the least, the Raptors played the most starting minutes last season, and they're doing the exact same thing this year. So you can maybe say, oh, Fred's load managing, but it's really not the case. Like when Kawhi was in town, he would just take a night off, and he could play the next game, but he's trying to save himself for later down the road. We're really not trying to do that with Fred. We're playing this guy 38 minutes the first 6 games of the season, and we did the exact same thing last year. Anyways, this offseason we tried to address this issue of our starters playing an unreasonable amount of minutes. Picked up a few guys, Christian Koloko, 33 in the draft. We got Thad Young now for the whole season instead of just half the year, but he's only playing like 8 minutes. Christian's got himself a good role though, actually, like 14 minutes a game, solid enough. And we got Juancho Hernan-Gomez too, the actor from Hustle. I mean, he was nice there, but he hasn't really seen much play here yet on the Raptors. And the big reason for this depth not actually making it to the floor too much, not having a huge impact on those starters, is because they just don't shoot the three that well. If you look at how this team was constructed, it's our starting players that are actually our three-point shooters too. If we just take a look at the top 4 three-point shooters by attempts, the guys who shoot over 4 attempts per game, those are Fred, OG, Gary Trent Jr., and Pascal Siakam. Those 4 guys that shoot over 4 attempts per game, and the only ones with those high percentages on high volume, are those starting players. So when we get all these depth guys, that's awesome, but they really can't take the role of any of those guys because they just don't shoot the three. It's not like those guys can come out of the game because there's no one else on the floor to run in our system to space and hit threes. So this is where Otto Porter Jr. comes in. He's a 9-year vet. His career has culminated in a championship with the Warriors just last year. And he's been through a lot, man. He's had injuries. He's been traded from teams. So he's a great vet to teach the young guys, show them how to play, but he can get it done on the floor too. What this guy does super well is move off of the ball. He can score without using the basketball. He's running around, cutting, setting screens for guys, and he can spot up and hit the three at an elite level. Now, career, he's a 40% three-point shooter. Last year with the Warriors, only shot 37%, but if he shoots anywhere in that range for us with the Raptors, we're going to love that. We're going to love that. And also, he's a top-notch mid-range shooter, too. He can hit the long two, like sort of in the mid-range there. As long as there's some space, this guy can hit a shot, man. Now, other than just the shooting, he's underrated at rebounding and at playing some help defense, too. Last season with the Warriors, he played 22 minutes a game and pulled down 5.7 rebounds and 1.1 steals. The Raptors are 25th out of all teams in rebounding right now, so we could really use those 5.7 rebounds per game. So what exactly do we need from this guy, Otto Porter Jr.? Well, just do what you did with the Warriors, man. Soak up like 20 minutes a game, play solid, stretch the floor. This will add a ton of versatility for Nick Nurse, game by game. Just being able to play these minutes. Some guys on our team, like let's say Gary Trent and OG Anunoby, they're super happy to play 37, 38 minutes a night. They're still young enough, 24, 25, trying to make a name for themselves and get a next big contract, develop as players. They're happy to do that, okay? But Fred, he's been dealing with injuries, like the back was just hurting him last season in the playoffs, the hip, and even in the end of the regular season, the hip was really bothering him. Pascal, too, he's held up a little bit better, but he misses some games as well, and I'm sure some nights they don't want to go pedal to the metal constantly, okay? And then from a tactical perspective, the team, we practice a certain way to run a certain offense. Some of that requires a certain amount of shooting on the floor. When you get the open threes, at some point you have to shoot those, okay? So you need enough guys that can knock down the shots. Luckily, Pascal's taken a bit of a leap this year. He's at 50% on three-point makes, so that's good. But still, the offense is super vulnerable to losing one of these three-point shooters. There's really no backups here, okay? Now, we're also 27th worst team in the NBA at knocking down the twos, and if the opponent packs the paint even more, because we just can't knock down threes, that'll get even worse. Now, when I talk about having no backup, in this last game against the Hawks, you kind of saw that. We had Malachi Flynn playing in the first quarter. Now, some people like Flynn, most people don't. Sadly, I'm not actually much of a hater on Flynn. I'm a bit of a supporter there. But they tried him out a little bit. Luckily, Scottie Barnes went crazy from three, 5 for 9, and bailed him out when it came to the three-point shooting. Now, that said, you can't bank on every single night some player going off crazy and operating way outside the way they normally do. And if you watch that Hawks game, man, the Raptors were just dominating these guys all game, played super well. It was a really fun watch. If you want to go, if I could recommend one game recently, definitely go watch that one. And the Raptors have been doing solid so far, man. We're at 4-3 now. Above average three-point shooting compared to last year. We were below average. And the main thing here is let's just stay healthy. Those top 4 shooters I mentioned before, especially, you got Gary last season missed 12 games, Fred 17, OG 34, Siakam 14, you add that up, 77 games last season. And that's, again, we're not load managing these guys. Like maybe 1 or 2 games they're actually getting a bit of a rest, but usually if they're not playing, it's because like they can't play that night. It's just going to make the team worse. Okay? And Otto can have a huge impact when it comes to this. He can reduce that number of games missed because those guys don't have to play as many minutes. Some nights when they're like, oh, should Fred play, should Fred not? Maybe that 76ers game, if Otto's in there, they don't play Fred because they look at him, they're like, look, you're not doing so great, but we really need you tonight, so get out there and try and guard Maxey. So there's calculated risks the Raptors make all the time when they send players out there, just like every other team. And with Otto Porter spacing the floor more, those top star three-point shooters won't have to be put at as much risk because they're not going to be just as critical to our offense working at all. So I think it'll reduce the impact too when the situation inevitably occurs that one of those guys does go down, because now the other guys don't have to play like 40 minutes a night, or we don't have to have Malachi Flynn out there too much, or Scottie Barnes doesn't have to take a whole bunch of step back threes like he made this last game against the Hawks. But it'll reduce the impact of how bad that is when one of these guys inevitably, for some reason, goes down. Maybe their back hurts. Maybe they break a finger like OG next year. Who knows? So we're still waiting on Otto's return. He came into the season with the Raptors with the some kind of hamstring injury. Not exactly what's going on there. Now, apparently that's healed, and we're waiting on some personal issues he's going through. So we're definitely, wishing him all the best with those. And that's not a terrible thing, terrible situation to happen one after the other too, because hamstrings can be really finicky, man, and giving that a little bit more time to heal, I'm really okay with that, especially with the shooters, those star players on our team. They're healthy, they're playing. I mean, Fred's having a bit of issues, but we know he's going to fight through that and be solid. So I hope to see Otto back soon. What do you guys think? Is Otto's return finally going to reduce some of the load on those starting players? And will he have the same winning impact in Toronto like he did in Golden State? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.